All right, for today's news brief, we're diving into something pretty huge. It's about AI, but not just on a computer screen. We're talking about AI making real, physical changes in a biology lab. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let's start with the headline number, 40%. A new AI system just slashed the cost of a super important biological process by 40%. Now that's not just a little tweak, that's a game changer. So you gotta be asking, how on earth did they pull that off?
Right, so this really is a major scientific headline. We're not talking about a small step forward here. This points to a fundamental shift, a whole new way of doing research where you've got AI and actual hands-on lab work coming together.
And the key phrase you need to remember is autonomous lab. I want to be really clear, this was not a simulation running on a server somewhere. We're talking about a cutting-edge AI model physically plugged into a robotic lab, designing and then running its own experiments in the real world. Wild, right?
And check out the timeline on this. It shows just how incredibly fast this new approach is. The moment they hooked the AI up to the lab, it only took 2 months to hit this new state-of-the-art efficiency. I mean, for this kind of super complex biological work, that pace is it's unheard of.
Okay, so a 40% cost cut is obviously amazing, but a cost cut for what, exactly? To really get why this is such a big deal, we need to talk about the problem they were trying to solve in the first place, which is the massive challenge of producing proteins.
The process is called cell-free protein synthesis. Let's just call it CFPS. So think about it this way. Instead of having to grow a whole living cell just to make one protein, scientists can basically pull out the tiny protein-making factories from the cell and use them directly in a test tube. It's a way faster method for testing out new ideas.
So, why should you care about proteins? Well, they're kind of everywhere. They're at the heart of so much of modern life. We're talking about medicines, diagnostic tests, powerful industrial enzymes. Heck, they're even in your laundry detergent, breaking down stains. So it's simple. Making proteins cheaper means we get cheaper, faster innovation across the board.
But here's the catch. CFPS is a fantastic tool, but it's also a major bottleneck. Imagine you're trying to bake the perfect cake, but you have hundreds of possible ingredients. Finding that perfect, cheapest, most delicious recipe is almost impossible. It's incredibly complex, and running thousands of test bakes would cost a fortune. That's the problem here.
And that is exactly where this new method comes into play. Researchers build a system that just smashes through that bottleneck by teaming up AI brains with robotic muscle. Let's break down how this incredible partnership actually works.
This quote just nails it. So much of biology comes down to one thing: iteration. Just running experiment after experiment after experiment until you find what works. The whole point of an autonomous lab is to put that entire process on hyperdrive.
What they built is called a closed-loop system, and it's brilliant. Here's how it works. Step 1, the AI designs a batch of experiments. Step 2, the robots in the lab actually do them. Step 3, the results get fed straight back to the AI. And step 4, this is the magic part. The AI looks at the data, learns from it, and then designs the next run of experiments, but this time a little bit smarter. It's this continuous, rapid-fire learning cycle.
And this chart really puts the scale of this into perspective. A team of humans, they might manage to run a few dozen of these experiments. But the AI lab, it ran over 36,000. So yeah, it's not just about being faster, it's about operating on a scale that was basically unthinkable for people to do by hand.
All right, so we know it cut costs by 40%. But how? What did the AI actually figure out to get there? The specific discoveries it made are honestly just as cool as that big number.
For starters, the AI could explore this huge, massive space of possible ingredient combinations way more thoroughly than any human could, and in doing that, it found these really clever, cheap recipes that researchers had just missed. It basically found new shortcuts in a field people thought they knew really well. And get this, the AI didn't just find a cheaper recipe, it found a smarter one. See, humans usually do these experiments in test tubes, where there's plenty of air and good mixing. The robots, though, use these tiny little plates with totally different conditions. The AI figured this out and came up with recipes that were way more robust and optimized specifically for the robots. It adapted.
Here's another cool thing it found. Turns out, tiny little changes to the stuff people usually ignore, simple things like salts and buffers that just stabilize the whole mixture, could have a massive impact on the final cost. The AI was able to test all these subtle little variables that a human researcher would probably just set and forget.
And finally, the AI basically learned a fundamental business lesson. It realized that the most expensive parts of the recipe are the core ingredients, the DNA instructions, and the cell machinery or lysate. So it figured out the best strategy wasn't to nickel and dime the cheap stuff. No, the real win was to squeeze every last drop of protein out of those expensive ingredients. It went all in on maximizing yield.
Okay, let's zoom out. What's the big picture here? What does all this mean for the future of research? Well, this one experiment is way more than just one experiment. It's a powerful proof of concept that could totally change how we do science, period.
Now, we have to be realistic here. There are some important caveats. These amazing results, they were for just one protein, in one specific setup. We still need to find out if this trick works for other things. And it's super important to remember that humans were still in the loop, managing the lab. The system isn't totally running on its own, at least not yet.
But even with those caveats, the real breakthrough here isn't just about making one protein a bit cheaper. It's the method. This whole lab-in-the-loop idea, AI designs, robot executes, AI learns, repeat. You can now take this whole system and aim it at tons of other hard problems in biology. It could be an accelerator for progress everywhere.
And that leaves us with a pretty mind-bending thought to wrap up on. We are officially entering a time where our labs can kind of think for themselves. They can learn and optimize 24/7 without getting tired. The potential is just staggering. So the big question is, when labs can think, what will they discover next?